Yes, Madhuji. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective, offered by Binduji. We are on Chapter 3. The replays of all the previous rooms are available in Clubhouse. The alternative sites are shared in the chat. One is a YouTube channel called Advaita Retort, where you have all these arranged in playlists so that each session like Bhagavad Gita and Avaroksha Anubhuti and the Upanishads are available as well-catalogued series of lectures. The alternative links are Apple Podcast and Spotify. There was also a book authored by Artemisia called The Imaginary Door, which is available on Amazon, which is a collection of Bindoji's insights on the basic aspects of Advaita. I'm going to close the chat and hand raising when Bindoji is conducting the class, and in about an hour or so, we'll open up the chat and hand raising, at which point you can clarify, ask questions, and clarify any doubts. Thank you, Bindoji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Atmishya. And Namaste, Hari Om to all of you. Let me do my invocation. Oh. Namo Brahma Dibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhya Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashi Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibeda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarudaha Stunvandya Divyaistavai Vedai Sangapadakramau Vanishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Paschyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam Navidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Oh. So yesterday we were discussing Indriyasya Arthe Ragadveshau Vyavastitau Tayoho Na Vashamagachetau Yasya Paribandinau. So we discussed this. What is pending is the Shankara Bhashya aspect. So let us start from that Shankara Bhashya of that verse 34. It says, Indrasya Arthe Sarvendriyanam Arthe Shabdhadi Vishaye. For each sense in relation to its object, for all senses in relation to their objects such as sound, etc. That means for every sense organ, Sabda Sparsha Rasa Rupa Gandha, it has got a corresponding object, Artha. So these interactions between the senses and the sense objects are the one which producing the psychological responses from us. Ishte rage, anishte dvesha. The responses are only of two types. If it is ishta, means attraction or craving is there, then it is called a raga. And if there is an aversion or a rejection, then it is called a dvesha. These reactions arise automatically in the presence of the sensory experience. Nothing is in the control as far as the reaction between the senses and the sense object is concerned, because they are their swabhava. the senses swabhava, the nature of the senses. If the eye is open, it has to see objects or forms. Same, if sound is produced, it will be heard only by the ears. So these are all called the natural disposition of the sense organs with respect to the sense objects. They have a universal presence. Ityevam prati indriyarthe ragadvesho avasyam bhavinav. Thus attachment and aversion inevitably arise with respect to each of the sense objects. What is Shankaracharya acknowledging by saying that these reactions naturally occur? They are part of the structure of the body, embodied life itself. Therefore, Gita does not deny their existence or their reactions or their natural occurrence. But the place of human effort, tatra ayam purushakarasya shastrarthasya cha vishaya uchyate. Here lies the domain of human effort and the Veda, Shastrasya, scriptural instruction. Their objection was there earlier. If it is natural and everything, what will we do, or what can be tendencies can be stopped? Even though tendencies arise naturally, the crucial point is whether one becomes controlled by them, controlled by the tendencies of the subject, the sense organ and the sense objects, and the creation of attraction and repulsion. This is where the discipline, moral choice, scriptural guidance, etc. will become meaningful. It doesn't erase these activities of natural occurrence, but how to be prepared when it is happening and what should be our reaction. Actions cannot be stopped between the senses and the sense objects. So when we practice discipline, we will create a awareness and attention when these events take place as a natural occurrence. The moral choice comes when we react to them. If we allow it to flow along with the attraction, then we are not applying our moral choice. So, moral choice can interfere our reaction, but not the attraction or repulsion which is happening between the senses and the objects. And it is here the scriptural guidance helps us to make this moral choice. Shastrarte pravrittaha purvameva ragadveshayoho vasham na agachet. One engaged in the following scripture, he should not become under the control of attachment or aversion or repulsion. Because scripture has given the do's and don'ts as far as ragadvesha is concerned. Therefore, recognize these impulses. Do not get submitted to them. Therefore, the scriptural design trains us or trains our mind to restrain impulsive reactions. Ya hi purushasya prakritihi sa ragadvesha purasareva swakarye purusham pravartayati. For a person's nature, because the person's nature leads him to action, preceded by attachment and aversion. If the mechanism, let us understand, the sensory contact occurs as a natural occurrence. The attraction or aversion arises at that point. The mind notices it. And if the mind is not trained, the action following that attention will be also controlled by the raga dvesha. That is why they have been mentioned in the previous verse as the pirates of the highway. Therefore, Prakriti pushes the individual through these psychological forces. That is why even a Jnanavan api, that word in the previous verse, has got the importance. Even the Jnanavan also notices the attraction and repulsion happening at the mind level when the indriya and the object is coming into contact. Then what happens in the case? Ordinarily, tada swadharma parityagaha paradharmanushtanam vacha bhavati. It is this time when one abandons one's own duty and performs others' duty. Now this may appear to be a bit confusing. When an attraction comes between the contact of the sense and the sense object, it happens wherever it is possible. Not necessarily only your places where you like it. No. Even places which you have no control over it, that can get attracted. That is why even Jnanavan acknowledges these happening. Because these are guided by Raga and Dvesha. These are the two pirates of the highway. One chooses action based on pleasure and avoidance without moral choice being deployed. That is the time when unknowingly, because of the attraction or repulsion, the actions following that attraction or repulsion is not befitting to your dharma, swadharma, which is instructed by the Shastra and your moral choice. Therefore, a person may abandon his rightful responsibilities attracted by the event of this type, Raga and Dvesha. That is the time when they are imitating others' role. Others' role means that attraction. Here is what we have to carefully bring in: the nature's law versus the role and the responsibility or the dharma of each individual. Just as the eye, when it is open, a form is seen. Now the form seeing is common to everyone. But a person who is into the spiritual path, knowing very well that is the nature's law, that when I open my eyes, I will see so many visions which should be guarded against my spiritual path. Yesterday, Venkat asked if somebody is stealing. It will be answered now very clearly. A person who is knowing that this should not be responded with. Please understand, the event is not in your control, but the response is in your control. And if you are trained yourself that I should not respond to the event, such a person deploys his moral choice. But a person who is not trained or who is at the mercy of the senses, sense objects, and the likes and dislike in his mind can get carried away. That is why the people, knowing also that things are addictive in nature, like drugs, alcohol, or cigarette, or any things like that addictive in nature, they have the knowledge of it, but they fall prey for it because they don't apply their control on getting out of it. Because it is the raga dvesha which is more powerful in controlling them rather than they having a control over their own raga dvesha. Now this example of addiction can be applied to anything. Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Lansarya, all those things can be places where can be applied. Therefore, discipline through opposing these forces is what is Shankaracharya saying in the next sentence. Yada punaha ragadvesho tat pratipakshena niyamayati. But when one restrains the attachment and aversion through their opposites, means do not playing along with the attachment or attraction and repulsion, then the counter forces of discrimination, detachment, and discipline will become more powerful than the pirates of raga and dvesha who will take you for the attraction and repulsion. These over a period will weaken the power of instinctive reactions from bias. This is what is called the sadhana, which we say that, it comes out of practice only. We need to put our efforts on it. So, acting according to the scripture, tada shastra drishtireva purusha bhavati. Then the person becomes guided by the vision of scripture. Scripture here is used not for the Veda alone. Any advice or instruction from the Vedas, the teacher, or people of good standing, Shrestha, which we explained in the previous verses. All those things become the guided instructions. At this stage, the seeker's actions arise from the understanding of these instructions and a deliberate judgment over the raga and dvesha. Thus, behavior becomes dharma guided, not impulse driven. So, a jnani also will have the attraction, repulsion at the indriya level. But at the mental level, since he has discipline, scriptural understanding or instruction understanding, and a much powerful judgment, which can be applied deliberately when such raga and dvesha is appearing, then he is guided by the dharmas. And he will get freedom from the nature's control. Na prakriti vashaha. He is no longer under the control of the nature. This does not mean the indriyas and the sense objects are not in contact. That means the nature and nature's control doesn't disappear. Rather, the seeker is no longer dominated by the instinct, and the discrimination governs the action. That is the Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. That is the discrimination which will guide you. Therefore, the final instruction is Tasmat Tayoho Ragodeshayoho Vasham na agachet. Therefore, one should not come under the control of Raga and Dvesha, attachment and aversion, or attraction and repulsion. Therefore, the control of Raga and Dvesha is the foundation for spiritual life. Why are they dangerous? Because ye tau hi asya purushasya paripantino, because which we explained yesterday. These two are the enemies of the person on the spiritual path. Because they create obstacles to the spiritual progress, and they obstruct the path leading to liberation or moksha. Shreyo margasya vigna kartaro taskaroho ivapati. They are like robbers of the road who obstruct the path of moksha. And here, the summary is like this: attachment and aversion are natural consequences of senses and sense objects. Yet, a person on the spiritual path must not come under their control. This is where the Uttishtada Jagrata is important. Awake and alive, be attentive. Because they are, these Raga and Dvesha will, without your knowledge, if you are not alert and attentive, take you away from the path of spirituality. They steal you from your path. Tatra raga dvesha prayuktoho manyate shastrartamapi anyatha paramo dharma api dharmatvad anushtheya eva iti tadasat. Now the next verse. Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharmat anushtitat. Swadharme nidinam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. Now this verse is a very confusing verse. Lot many people have found how to decode this advice from Krishna. I'll read the simple meaning first. Vigunaha swadharmaha swa anishtitat paradharmat shreyan. Meaning, one's own dharma, duties and responsibilities, even imperfectly performed, is better than a well-performed dharma of another person. So the question is in the mind which can happen is, why imperfectly performed dharma is better than a perfectly performed dharma? That is the confusion which has been always created. But they forget to give importance to one's own dharma against the other person's dharma. Because the next line says that Swadharme Didinam Shreya. That is much better than doing somebody else's dharma by doing our own dharma. Death in one's own dharma is better than paradharma is fought with danger. That is paradharma bhayavaha. They move, the declarations of both of them move in a general principle. It's very simple. Imperfect swadharma beats a perfect paradharma. Because swalpamapyasi dharmasya trayato mahade bayat is what Krishna has promised in the beginning. if you remember this verse, even if a small bit of dharma will save you from mahato bhayat, from a great danger, that is his promise, which is towards swadharma. To establish the same thing and concretizing that is this verse. So here Shreyan is a comparative, says more beneficial, more praiseworthy as a means to both worldly welfare and liberation. Karma jyayo hi akarmaha in the 3.8. Paramam Shreya. So these are the two places where the comparison, more praiseworthy or more valued, has been given in the earlier, in the same chapter. But here it introduces the most personal and direct application of Karma Yoga as a teaching to Arjuna's specific situation. Abhyudayini Shreya Sadhanataya Parashrayata. So, it is Krishna saying that what is really good is not by the outcome of or the method in which it is being karma is being dharma is being followed. For that, we have to understand what is swadharma. Then only an imperfect swadharma's superiority against a well done paradharma, what does it stand by? The simple meaning of swadharma is one's own dharma or one's own prescribed duty as per the, duties and responsibilities in the society. When it is said that one's own dharma is better, so varnashrama abhidhana karma is what Shankaracharya is mentioning it as. Action prescribed by one's own varna and ashrama. That was during the Vedic period. Today, it will be action prescribed by one's own duties and responsibilities. So varna and ashrama is no more being followed in the life by us. So swadharma is specific configuration of duty that defines one's responsibility in the cosmic order. So for Arjuna, as a kshatriya or as a or born into the family of king, it is yuddha as a dharma which is now facing him, a warrior's duty. Because duty doesn't mean all the time he is in the warrior dharma. Please understand that. When a situation is there, what is his dharma? It can be based on what is the situation. That is to be kept in mind. It doesn't mean that because you are born in a varna and ashrama or a particular situation, all the time that is your swadharma. So, one's swadharma is the dharma that corresponds to and expresses one's own swabhava as shaped by the prarabdha karma and guna samskara. Please understand this. So here it is not talking about varna and ashrama. The prarabdha karma or the body which you have taken for which you have to perform your life's responsibilities. For that, there is a guna samskara. There is an inclination and orientation within you So you have only two sets of tools in your hand. That is, one is the responsibilities or the place where you are born, or what is your responsibilities as per your birth. And your disposition based on your latent tendencies and vasanas with which you have acquired your capabilities. Because we embark on our path of spirituality, it can be any point of time in our life. It can be towards the birth itself, or it can be toward the fag end of the life. But whatever may be the time it is there, we are controlled by these two things at the time of execution of our responsibilities. So Swadharma will be based on our Swabhava. Therefore, to follow Swadharma is to work with one's Prakriti rather than against it. So knowing very well these two limitations of us, that what is the situation in which, or which condition I am born in, as a rich man, poor man, a intelligent person, or a muscled man for doing menial job, or a physical job, whatever may be the condition, nobody is superior or inferior. Please don't consider that. It is, everybody is required for the cosmic order to be maintained. So when it is told that you, depending upon your birth, you are given certain set of parameters within which you have to live. Within the set of parameters within which we live, we also bring with us a set of inclinations which we have honed and made our skills befitting our inclinations and tendencies. So when these two are joined together, it becomes our Swabhava. And that is what nature expects us to perform. Because nature wants everyone in their own role to perform their duties and responsibilities. So what I am born should be known to me with my limitations of my birth and conditions of my skill sets which I am having. Then when we are doing that, that becomes a dharmic conduct. Then we are within the discipline of dharma. So Swadharma has to be understood very clearly. Don't pretend you are something else. If you are not understanding what is the Swadharma, you should know, we have to understand from these two definitions which has been given as Prarabdha Karma and Guna Samskara are the two things which we should be able to identify what is I am born for. The cosmic or the universe wants me to perform, what is the role I have to perform. Vigunaha, the next word. V is to indicating deviation or deficiency. Vigata. Guna is quality, merit, excellence, etc. So, both put together, V plus Guna, Viguna, will become imperfectly performed or lacking in excellence or deficient in merit. Even if sometimes it can be defective in execution also. Vigata Gunaha, Nyuna Gunaha, that is reduced merit or imperfectly accomplished. Now the compound is a psychologically charged element for the comparison. Swadharma, even when imperfectly performed, Viguna Swadharma, is declared superior to Paradharma Swanishtitad. Su-anishtitad, which we will see that. Su means well. Anushtitat means performed. He does not mean that imperfect performance is to be preferred to perfect performance. No. Please remember that I told that. The Krishna's intention here is that imperfect performance is preferred to perfect performance. He is not talking about the nature of performance at all. What he means is the type of the duty is more important than the quality of execution. Therefore, evenly poorly executed Swadharma is better than a perfectly executed Paradharma, means another person's job and responsibilities. Because Swadharma is grounded in the Swabhava and serves the overall cosmic and spiritual economy of the individual. Whereas Paradharma, however well performed it can be, doesn't matter, is structurally misaligned with one's own adhikara and prakriti. That is duties and responsibilities, or Swadharma. So we know that Paradharma, Swadharma, at the opposite is Paradharma, belonging to somebody else's. So Paradharma does not mean adharma. Please understand that. That is where some people make a mistake. Paradharma is not adharma. Paradharma is simply means it is not befitting your swabhava. It is wrong for this person because it belongs to a different person. Therefore, this action and duties and responsibilities cannot be performed by you, which is not meant for you. Because that is for a different swabhava and for a different adhikari. So the practice of dharma that does not belong to one's own birth, prarabdha and guna karma, based on that, it is called paradharma. So I said su-anishthidas is well performed. So this verse does not compare mediocre swadharma with mediocre paradharma, but an imperfect swadharma with a perfect paradharma, establishing the superiority of swadharma even if it is performed little or half or due to, incapability because you have not developed the skill for it. That is much better than doing somebody else's swabhava. Swadharme nidhanam means the death in performing one's swadharma is shreyaha, is better, preferable or more beneficial. The verse does not romanticize death in swadharma, but declares it categorically better than the alternative. So, Shreya means better even in the extreme case of death. Even if that happens in the Swadharma, that is better. So, Arjuna fears death in battle as his Swadharma, which is his Swadharma, and proposes to adopt Paradharma of non-fighting to preserve life. The verse cuts through this reasoning and with absolute clarity. Therefore, it says Bhayavaha. It is that which brings fear or fought with evil consequences, perilous. The bhaya in question is not merely worldly danger, but a deeper spiritual danger of dharma-চ্যুতি, means falling from one's own dharmic position. So, Arjuna proposed renunciation of battle as precisely which is the paradharma for him, because his dharma was to, as a kshatriya, to fight the war. Therefore, the adoption of another person's dharma, brahmana dharma or sannyasa dharma by Arjuna, is not his swabhava. It becomes paradharma. His prarabdha karma is because he is born as a kshatriya. And therefore his adhikara is also that of a kshatriya. So if we go through this verse, even an imperfect Shastra dharma, that is that warrior dharma, however tragically it may involve killing, either self-annihilation or annihilation of others, it is better than most preferred, perfectly performed brahmana dharma or sannyasa dharma by Arjuna. Therefore, swadharme nidhinam is better than the life. He will not be able to perform the brahmana dharma or sannyasa dharma because his prakriti, his swabhava, is not befitting for either to be a brahmana or a sannyasi. And his rajasic swabhava or the rajasic inclination or the vasanas in him will make him an angry and fuming brahmana or sannyasi. Then swadharmo niguna vigunaha is a statement for metaphysics of adhikara. Each being swadharma is an expression of its swabhava, which is in turn the expression of prarabdha karma and guna karma. The accumulated karma samskara that shapes the specific configuration of the individual for his gunas and capacities. So to practice swadharma, however imperfectly, is to work within the grain of one's own being, allowing the gunas and swabhavas to find their natural dharmic expression. Whereas to practice paradharma, however excellently, is to work against the grain of one's being, creating a structural misalignment between the swabhava and the achara or conduct. Swadharma may be imperfect because it is one's swabhava may be imperfect. Doesn't matter. But the imperfection of swadharma is a natural imperfection that karma yoga can gradually refine it. Please understand that. All imperfections can be perfected. So swadharma in the initial stages performing maybe in an imperfect way. When we do the beginning of the karma yoga, it will refine the imperfections and make our swabhava attuned to the perfection. While the apparent excellence of paradharma is a structural misalignment, no amount of skill can make it genuine. Remember, Arjuna argued that it is better to live by begging than to kill one's own teachers and relatives in the 5th verse of 2nd chapter. Krishna now reverses this completely. by saying that it is better to die in one's own Swadharma than to live in Paradharma. The reason is that Swadharme Nidinam does not produce Adharma Karma or Dharma Chuti. The warrior who dies fighting has fulfilled his Swadharma completely. His karma is Shuddha, pure, and the trajectory is upward. Thus, one who lives in Swadharma do not acquire Adharma, whereas one who lives in Paradharma accumulates Adharma through the action, every action performed as a structural misalignment to his Swabhava. This will pull you down from the path of spiritual practice or even ordinary life. Paradharmo Bhayavaha. That Bhayavaha is to entire chain of consequences that follow from Adharma, which is mentioned as Varna Sankara, Kula Dharma Nasha, Naraka, etc. in the first chapter, 40, 41, 44, like that. All the fears that Arjuna had projected before speaking to Krishna onto the war, after dropping his bow and arrow, to show his inaction or his unwillingness to fight. And that was constituting the Paradharma to a Kshatriya. What Arjuna feared from fighting, Bhaya, is in truth what his proposed inaction would have brought, Paradharma would have bring. What he feared from fighting is in truth the Shreyas, his own Swadharma, through which alone he can progress towards moksha. The Bhashya is like that. Shreyan prasastaraha swadharmo swadharmaha swadharmaha. One's own dharma, one's own proper duty and responsibility is superior and more commendable. Swadharma means duty appropriate one's nature and role of birth. It arises from Prakriti, one's own social functions and one's own psychological disposition due to latent vasanas, etc. Thus, the path is naturally suited to the individual. Vigunaha api, vigata gunaha api, anushtīyamānaha. Even if performed imperfectly, lacking excellence, one's duty may appear to be flawed due to these reasons. Yet, even with defects, it remains appropriate to one's nature and therefore spiritually safer. Paradharmat swanishtiyat sagunaina sampaditatapi. That it is superior to another's dharma even when the other's duty is performed perfectly. Shankaracharya explains that performing another's role is even excellently creates disharmony because it contradicts one's own nature and leads to internal conflict. Thus, external success cannot compensate for inner mismatch. Even death in one's own dharma is better. Swadharme sthitasya nidhinam maranam api shreyaha. Preserves inner alignment when you are doing your dharma. And it sustains the spiritual growth. And even if you die in that path of the spiritual growth, there is no loss. It remains spiritually beneficial. Because your actions will not go waste. Paradharmo sthitasya jividat. Then the following are somebody else's life. Tasmat paradharma bhayavaha. Why? Because another person's dharma is dangerous. Naragadi lakshanam bhayavaham bhayamava avahati ayataha. It produces fear in the form of hell and similar sequences. Performing inappropriate duty leads to wrong actions, karmic consequences, and suffering. Thus, paradharma ultimately results in spiritual downfall. Shankara, yadyapi anarthamulam dhyayato vishayan pumsa, etc. When we started raga dvesho hyo paripantino iti cha uktam. Although this is saying, the next verse is this thing by Arjuna. So before that, how it is that although the roots of evil has been described earlier from, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Vajayade 2.62. Sangat Samjayade Kama Kamat Krodo Vijayade Krodat Bhavati Sammoha Sammoha Smriti Brahmsha Smriti Brahmsha Buddhinasho Buddhinasha Pranashyati. That is the 62 to 65. 62-63. Then in 334, Ragadesho hi Paripandino. The Raga and Dvesha are the obstacles in this path. So, Vikshittam Anavadharitam cha Taduktam. But that explanation was scattered and not fully determined. The earlier teaching was distributed across different verses. It was not concentrated to addressing Raga Dvesha of Arjuna. Not yet presented as a single clear principle. Therefore, Arjuna seeks definite identification for the root cause. Tat sankshiptam nishchitam cha idamevati jnatum icchan Arjuna uvacha. Desiring to know the cause, the consequences of this, Arjuna is asking the question. Arjuna uvacha, the verse number 36. Adakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha. Anichan api varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. O Varshneya means O Vrishnikula Samjadaha, the one who is born in the Vrishnikula, means Krishna. Impelled by what does this person commit sin, even while unwilling, as if forcibly put into work in it? Anichannavi baladiva niyojitaha. That is the heart of the question which Arjuna is asking. What is that which is compelling, which results in a moral failure against one's own will? Atha means now or then. Arjuna is starting to ask. Atha, therefore, I make at this point. The earlier chapter has concluded teaching Swadharma and Paradharma and the blessing. Arjuna now is asking a question from what to do and why people act wrongly even when they know better. So, Kena Prayuktaha means driven by what? Pointing to an external or at least a non-atmic force uses the Purusha as an instrument. It was said that it is the Indriyas and the Indriyartha, that is senses and the sense objects, where the Raga Dvesha is being created. If that is the case, the instrumental cause and the causal analysis also. Arjuna is not asking whether people act badly, which was obvious in the explanations given earlier. But what is the specific force which compels them to do so? That is why the word kena is more important here. The question thus is the request for the causal analysis of why a moral failure should take place. It is not the Atman that acts, but something operating through the Purusha. Here the Purusha is different from Atman or Kshetra. That is the word I am. Is this very person, not this person in general, but this person who is doing things not morally right. That is any person, including the one posing the question, can be observed being compelled by Papa against his own judgment. I am Papam Charati. Why should this person act according to the Papam? Papam means sin, evil or wrongdoing. Papa here encompasses both ritual transgression, vidhi karma, and moral wrong, himsa, asteya, etc. That is by, hurting and stealing, etc. Any action that produces adharma, karma, and deepens the samsaric bondage. So the Papa Charana is not an accidental but a repeated habitual behavior of this person. That is why this question makes urgent from Arjuna's point of view. The Purusha or the person, individual here, the embodied being who can attain the Supreme through Karma Yoga, but is here observed committing Papa instead. Why? Anichannapi, that is the word used by. Even while not wishing to do. That is, if the person wanted to commit sin, no further explanation would be needed. It is the unwilling commission of Papa that demands explanation. Jnanan api doshan sevate. Even knowing that the faults, one pursues them. The Anichan describes the phenomenon of acting against one's own better judgment and desire, which is the specific puzzle Arjuna is raising as his question. Balat, Varshnaya Krishna, Balativa, means the person is overpowered, Balat, by this force, just as one who is physically seized and dragged and not acting voluntarily. A person acting voluntarily will not go against his Swadharma. But here he is going against his Swadharma as if he is dragged by force. That is why the word Paripanthinau has got importance there. The word Paripanthinau in the previous verse is indicating the bandits or the what you call highway robbers. They force you to detour your way or abandon your wealth and run away. Same is the condition, baladiva, as if force physically seized and dragged. A person does actions contrary to his swabhava. Arjuna is not asking about the person who wants to commit sin. That case is simple. The force is driving him is kama and trishna. He is asking about the person who does not want to do papa or a sin, but does so anyway, as if compelled by a force stronger than his own will. Shankaracharya reads this as a precise phenomenological observation. Everyone has experienced moments when they knew clearly what was right, did not want to do wrong, yet found themselves doing wrong as if driven by an overpowering force. Every one of us has experienced some moments in our life when we knew clearly that what we are doing is wrong. We also know that we don't want to do the thing wrong, what is wrong. Yet, we found ourselves that we are doing wrong as if driven by some overpowering source. That momentary weakness is what is overpowering us. This is the specific phenomena, the experience of moral compulsion against one's own better judgment that Arjuna is asking Krishna to explain. Shankaracharya reads the passive constructions as prayuktaha and niyojita as philosophically deliberate by Krishna. And the Purusha is not autonomous agent of Papa. He is the instrument of force that operates through him. He doesn't want to operate that way, but he becomes an instrument for the force which pushes him towards that. This reading is consistent with the Advaitic analysis of 3.27, where prakrite gunaihi karmani sarvashaha kriyamanani, which we saw that, in which all actions are performed by the gunas of the prakriti, not by Atma. So the question kena prayuktaha is thus a request to identify which specific guna or prakriti vikara is approximate force driving us towards the sin, the way it is described. Krishna answers this in third verse number 37. Kama yesha krodha yesha. That is how the next verse started. Is the direct response to this question. Shankaracharya reads Belat as pointing toward the irresistibility of the force experienced by the ordinary person when things should not be done when he is doing it. Something that overpowers the jiva's rational and moral faculties. Shankaracharya connects this analysis of ragadvesha paripanto as adversaries, the wayside robbers. They overpower him because of the andakarana has not yet been purified through karma yoga sadhana to the point where viveka is strong enough to resist the bala. So even if there are bandits on our way, if we have acquired viveka, enough viveka through the process of karma yoga sadhana, by doing karma yoga and yajnartha karmana, then that viveka becomes strong enough to resist the bala of the, swabhava, which is pushing us towards momentary weakness and doing the wrong things, towards sin. Krishna's identification of karma as the root cause of all sin through the verses 37 to 41 is having heard Arjuna's precise question, which compelled the moral failure. Therefore, the Krishna will name the compeller as Kama, born out of Rajas, knowing no satisfaction and growing by indulgence, and then provide the practical sadhana for overcoming it through progressive discipline of Indriya, Mana and Buddhi. And this remaining verses from 37 to 43 thus is the direct answer to this question of Arjuna, the most generative question in the Gita, the one that occasions Krishna's most penetrating analysis of the mechanism of karma bandha and or the hierarchy of the faculties through which kama operates. Kama means desire, operates, and through which it can be overcome. So I'll stop it here. We will continue this tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavada.
Thank you very much, Bindoji. I've opened the chat and hand raising if there are any follow-up questions.
Bindo, may I just speak to you briefly?
Why briefly? You can take all your time.
Okay, well, I want to make sure that other people's interactions with you are prioritized, but I really enjoyed this. You know, as I'm not as familiar with the Bhagavad Gita as many people here are, things come as a surprise to me because I don't know what's coming next. But these really spoke to me a lot, and I just wanted to share a few of my thoughts. And then, you know, if you have some thoughts as well on what I've said, that'd be terrific. So on verse 34, I felt that this really speaks in a different way to something that I would have said in my own words over the years, which is that these kind of strong feelings, and maybe some people would call them passions, but attraction, aversion, hatred, anger, they're so much used in the maintenance of our personhood. A personhood in the form of ego is what I mean, is really built up by having these kind of reactions and a form of self-righteousness. It makes me think of something I heard years ago in psychology, for instance, when couples are breaking up or friends are breaking up, they often feel a lot of anger and this other person is wrong and bad and so forth. And it isn't just an assessment that the other person's bad. It's actually it makes us feel our individuality and our separation, and it's a very useful kind of feeling in separating ourselves off, which is kind of the opposite direction of what we'd hope are doing on our spiritual path. And in a way, I still express this as a practice of really not taking anything personally. That we still discern and we can still see things that are good and bad, and we still have feelings, but it has a sense of not taking anything personally. And then verse 35 was really lovely, and for me it again, in my view, my limited view, I don't know, I'm not saying of what the Gita intends to say, but I'm talking about what I heard, was I felt that's related to the interchange that we had, I guess on Sunday, related to last Tuesday's class. I was talking about being able to, we were talking about your statement of the person becoming the pramana themselves, and this authenticity, and how we may, we may feel inadequate at times, but what I was trying to share in that exchange was that even if it seems inadequate to us, how we can express that being true to our own expression and being authentic is really the only way to go, and that this actualization of this realization really coming into being isn't ever anything that can be imitated. It has to happen in our own way. And you used the phrase, I'm not sure where it came from, but you were speaking of going with the grain of one's being. And I really thought all of this was very lovely and very practical and very free of any particular traditions, biases or anything. These are just true things. So I really enjoyed it a lot. Hari Om Bindo.
Thank you, Atmisha. You have expressed it exactly the way in which Krishna has wanted us to understand, and I am happy that you have got it correctly. And all you said about the resentment and anger which people, when they break up, go through is all due to the raga and dvesha, or the, which is controlling our reactions. And that is exactly what Krishna is attacking and telling Arjuna how to, be free from these forces, which are nature's forces. That is why he said that also, even at Jnanavanapi, even a person who is knowledge can fall for it if he is not in guarding for it. So that is excellent, what you have understood it perfectly. Thank you, Atmisha. Revati, you said you will come up and introduce yourself. Can you please come? Because we generally come to know about those who are regular in this class. If you don't want to come, that's fine. Perfectly fine. Anybody else?
If nobody is coming up, I have a question, Binduji. See this. You differentiated the Viveka with reference to practicing, the gradual practice to see the relationship between Swabhava and Swadharma, and the Viveka and the Vairagya that results from that. You differentiated that from the Viveka of the, if you want to call it Jnana, right?
Mm.
So
the Viveka which is referred here is the Jnana Nishta of before the knowledge or the Jnana takes on as a fructification of Nididhyasana. Here it is the Karma Yoga and Yajnartha. When you do it, there will be a level of knowledge arising, differentiating between what is eternal, what is ephemeral, and what is the difference between the two. So that is what is the Viveka here which is being referred to. Not that I am the self or I am Brahman, which is the Jnana which really leads to moksha.
Yes. So is it right to say that these two practices can occur simultaneously to strengthen one's own?
Which two practices?
That the realization that I am the self, and at the
that
same
will
time
not happen. That is not a practice. That is a knowledge which you know it like knowing anything else. Today you know, or we know ourselves as this body, mind, intellect. We don't know we are the self. The moment we know it, we will know for sure that we are not the body, mind and intellect. That difference between not the body, mind, intellect, but I am the self is what is called the jnana. But the differentiation between eternal and ephemeral is in the path that what is that I am looking for is eternal, and anything which is ephemeral, which is keeping on changing, is negated. saying that this is not eternal. This is not eternal. So what is that? That is, they are all mere, pratiti or, appearances. So that way the knowledge, what you acquire to differentiate between the eternal and ephemeral is the viveka which we talk about. Or in the Sanskrit we say nitya nitya vastu viveka. What vastu which is nitya, which is anitya. That knowledge is it is a path in the nididhyasana, shravana. It is part of the shravana itself. Whereas the knowledge that I am the self, it will happen only once. And that time both will happen, that what I am not also will be known. And when I know what I am, I will also know what I am not. So you will not have this continuity of these two things going parallelly.
Thank you, Binduji. Yeah. So this Raga Dvesha and the Viveka arising there about the Swadharma, right? And how that connects to one's gradual practices, what is being addressed in these sections, right?
Right.
Thank you all. Over to Venkat.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste, Venkat.
Binduji, this Ragadvesha and this whole Indriya, the Ragadvesha connected to Indriya is well aligned. That Tadrusham Ishtate Swasyaha, even the knower will still come under the influence of Prakriti. Hence further, the Viveka, that whatever Vyavasatmaka Buddhi or Nishyatmaka Buddhi, Viveka Yuta Buddhi, come in the way of handling them.
Yes.
In a way, right? That's the summary, right? That's the summary.
Yes.
Now that means that controlling force is available. Hence, further, the effect of Prakriti or that Raga Dvesha from the respective Indriyas are in check. Right, Binduji? I was trying to connect back because we had this discussion about this that attention, the mode of consciousness. I was referring back to this Atharvana Veda in that Ganesha Atharva Shirsham, celebrating Ganesha. It talks about guna also. The Kalatrayatitaha, Gunatrayatitaha, Dehatrayatitaha, Tvam Muladare Stito Sidityam, Tvam Yogino Dhyayanti Nityam, Shakti Trayatmakaha. That means the power of attention, power of knowledge, and power of action is available at the disposal. Even this is like a daivic, the domain of daiva is available. Basically, this controlling the pure forces of, right, power of knowledge, power of action, all these are available. Are we missing a middle step, because we are simply jumping into Viveka Yuta Pratyahara. In reality, the Pratyahara is, in the divinic, basically the yoga is divinic. That, is available at the disposal, help control these, demonic forces, you call it, or the side effects of these Ragadvesha, because that power is available. Hence, further, everything is in check. Right, Binduji?
Right. There, everything is in check. But the viveka or the knowledge, the jnana, is not in the domain of, in the indriya or manas or anywhere. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. So, these three, Shaktitraya, which is mentioned by you, is very well within the Stula Sukshma Sharira.
No, because it was already said, that is Dehatrayatitaha. Right?
Dehatrayatitaha. And what is the last one you said? Karya and Shaktitraya.
Shakti Trayatmakaha.
Shaktitrayatmakaha.
Yeah.
Shaktitrayatmakaha means it is the self of all the three.
I'll read it other way. These are the pure energies available at the disposal. They are beyond, Kalatraya, Dehatraya, all of that.
Yes.
Yet, these are available at disposal, purely. So, when we say knowledge, right? Knowledge is one of the Shakti Trayatmaka, or, power of attention is, that's Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga, right? These are the three Shaktis. They're beyond, any of this, right? Kalatraya, Dehatraya, Gunatrayatmaka, all of this, right? That is where this is a missing link that allows, supersede the effect of gunas, effect of all of this.
I won't be able to link it from that to the Advaitic principle.
Correct. Because I'm not bound by any of this. That is why
Yes.
I'm not bound by any philosophy. That's how I see it. Because I gone into yoga just for the reason that, this Vivekatmaka Pratyahara is mentally understood, yet, when these forces come in, it need that, dimension of yoga available. It's a very nicely available because yoga is Daivik.
I'm not denying that. Any method, you can use that for the purpose of, whether it is yoga, dhyana, tantra, mantra, all of them are equally used by different people. But the ultimate jnana is that Aham Brahmasmi, as per the Upanishad, has to dawn on us. Why?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Upanishad is the ultimate, no doubt.
Yes.
Just that not to be bound by any philosophical disposition. Hence, everything fall in place. That's about it, Bendoji.
Okay.
Thanks, Bendoji.
Thank you. Namaste, Jesse. Namaste. You're not unmuted. Jesse, you're not unmuted. Okay.
Some glitch.
Yes. Some glitch. She couldn't unmute. Yeah, she is back. Okay, I think she's not able to come up.
Yeah, we can
Or
catch
is
up.
is she restarting her mobile? We'll give a couple of minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
Because sometimes, if you exit and come back also, it doesn't work due to the glitch. So you may have to restart your mobile.
Yeah. Reset the app. Yeah.
I think tomorrow she will be there. We can ask her to a question tomorrow then.
Sure. I'll send her a back channel chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's wind down today. So thanks everyone for coming. And the replays again are available in the Clubhouse replays, or you could go into one of those links provided in the chat where you can access all the earlier talks if you want to revisit some of these topics. And as always, a heartfelt thanks to Bindoji and fellow moderator Artemisia and Venkatji who came up to ask the questions. And we'll meet again tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST to continue the session. As always, thank you, Bindoji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Artemisia. Thank you, Venkat. And I hope Jesse will be able to come join tomorrow to ask the question. And thank you all for listening. We'll continue the next verses, which is 37th verse to 41, which are very important. That is, Krishna is giving us the sadhana, or the means in which we can control our raga and dvesha. So they are very important, and let us give due credit to that verses when we are assimilating them. Starting from tomorrow, we'll see that. Hari Om. Good night.
Good night. Hari Om.